I love this story from Mark, not just because it's about boats, but partly because it's about boats. And that final stanza from Eternal Father, O Trinity of love and power, thy children's shield in danger's hour, from rock and tempest, fire and foe, protect them where'er they go, and thus evermore shall rise to thee glad hymns of praise from land and sea. And so what you're going to hear today is a hymn of praise rising from the land. It's 1965. My father would love this story because he was there. And he would love it even more because he's going to see this story through the eyes of his 12-year-old son. I have direct access to these memories. You do not. So you're going to have to use your imagination to hear the thoughts of this 12-year-old boy out on the sea with his father. You're king of the world. You're 12-year-old boy piloting the Blue Marlin, your father's 40-foot sport fishing boat. Twin Chrysler Crown engines wrap you in a blanket of gentle sound, a symphonic background of harmony to enrich the crying gulls, the splashing sea. Enthroned high above the sea on the flying bridge, you attend your domain. The sea stretches majestically to the horizon, while purple waves dance beneath a sky so brilliant, so blue, it makes you smile just to see it. You inhale deeply, slowly, filling your lungs with fresh salt air, smelling more than breathing, feeling more than smelling. You're completely captured by the sensuality of nature, in love with the sea. On occasion, you laugh at your good fortune because you're the luckiest boy in the world. Your father has had the unusually good sense to escape the prison of a landlocked northern factory town to run a charter boat on the Florida Keys. When you're not in school, you're first mate on the Blue Marlin. You would do it for free, but when grateful guests slip you a $10 tip for attending their needs, it only proves what a sad, deprived existence landlubbers live. Today, you stand alone on the bridge, which is only to be expected because on the deck below, 6 guests eat sandwiches and drink beer, laughing as your father tells fishing stories. All the more hilarious because they're mostly true. 3 lines follow in the wake, baited with live mullet. Here on the bridge, you keep watch over the baited lines, you check the compass, you adjust the rudder, you keep the boat on course. You have the world to yourself, and the talk below is muffled and incomprehensible by the throbbing engines. The waves leap and roll around you until some majestic sailfish catches a scent and strikes one of the mullet. There's nothing to do until then but keep the boat on course, watch the bait, enjoy the sea. But sooner or later, they begin creeping in, those questions, creeping in like they always do. Questions, slithering, uninvited, unwanted, unbidden, like your cat sneaks into your bed while you're asleep and steals the blankets and pillow unnoticed by you until you wake shivering from the cold. Those questions slowly creep in and steal away the blanket of the sound, the sight, and the smell until you suddenly awake, shivering in the cold of the universe, as always. The sky, the sea, the rhythmic sounds, they're all still there just as they were before, but now, rather than gently massaging you in their luxurious trance of pleasure, they provoke you, pick at you. The unwanted questions taunt you. Where does all this come from? How did it get here? What does it all mean? Does it mean anything? Do you fit into this world? Familiar options roll around your mind. Has it always been this way? Is this just the way it is? Wonderful and gorgeous, but accidental, unintentional, utterly meaningless, impersonal? The absurd accident of random protons and electrons crashing around for no good reason? But what if it were intentional? What if such incredible beauty and pleasure were on purpose? Could this all be part of some cosmic plan? Is there a God? If there is a God, not just some enormous, amorphous, impersonal, unconscious force, but an actual, honest to goodness God with thoughts and intentions, consciousness. If there is a God, then what does all this mean? Are you there, God? Are you there? I can keep a secret. Just tell me. Just whisper it. I promise I won't tell. Show me that you're there, please, God. If you're there, please, God. Let me know that all this means something, that I mean something, that this isn't all just stupid, meaningless. You don't have to do anything hard. It doesn't have to be spectacular. You don't have to write your name in the sky or speak aloud or cause a water spout or do a miracle or anything like that. Just let me know, please, God. Show me that you're there. You see that spot right over there, God? Just have a sailfish just leap out of the waves right there. Nobody will see it, just me. And even if others do see it, they don't have to know you did it. They'll just think it's a lucky chance they got to see it. Please, God. Please, God. You're a 12-year-old boy staring out at nature, trolling across the endless sea, a sea that's meaningless and cold, a sea lying dead beneath a dead, empty sky. It's all very quiet. There's nothing there. You're quite alone. When all is said and done, you're only alone. But you're still the first mate of the Blue Marlin and you have a job to do. So on the deck below, 6 Yankee landlubbers eat their stupid sandwiches and drink their stupid beer, laughing as your father tells stupid fishing stories. 3 lines follow in the wake to catch a stupid fish. You're about 12 miles out from land, trolling back toward the Keys, which lie west over the horizon, invisible. At this speed, it'll take 2 hours to get back to the reef line to nail a stupid kingfish or a stupid barracuda before calling it a stupid day. And that's when you notice the wooden plank drifting north in the Gulf Stream's flow. Half a mile out there off the starboard bow. If you'd come along 5 minutes earlier, it would have been off the port bow and you wouldn't have seen it because of the sun's afternoon glare. If you'd come along 5 minutes later, you wouldn't have seen it because it would have been out of sight, gone. You're there just in the nick of time to see that plank. Aware of your incredible luck, you call down below, Dad, There's a plank about half a mile off the starboard bow. He can't see it from the angle where he is on the lower deck, but he calls back, let's do it. As your father heads below to break out the light spinning tackle, you veer the boat off to the north. The 6 guests have no idea what's about to happen. So we explain. When there's a wooden plank adrift in the sea, little fishies gather underneath that plank for protection from the seagulls above. Medium-sized fish gather under the plank, hoping to eat the little fish. Bigger fish circle around deeper still, hoping to eat the medium fish who are under the little fish who are under the plank. This could be the best fishing of the day. So as the blue marlin draws near, even the landlubbers can recognize the huge school of Dorado swarming beneath the plank. You're excited because you know that Dorado are terrific game fish. You've probably eaten it in seafood restaurants under the name mahi mahi. Dorado put up a good fight on light spinning tackle. Beautiful to look at. Some of the best eating seafood. It's exciting watching them jump out of the sea as trying to escape the hook. Spotting this plank is a great stroke of luck. Slowly, you circle the plank. It continues drifting north in the Gulf Stream flow, so your circles are always moving to the north. One by one, the guests hook a Dorado, laughing and shouting as the fish fight for their life and for their freedom. And the guests are thrilled. It's the time of their life. They'll tell stories about this for years to come. For the next hour, exactly 1 hour, 60 minutes. For some reason, some unapparent, unknown reason, the fish suddenly stop taking the bait. They continue to swarm beneath the drifting plank, but no change in bait or tactics makes a bit of difference. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen. The fish are there, but they won't strike. They swarm, but they don't take the bait. You look at your father, amazed. He looks at you, baffled. Eventually, you shrug at each other. He tells you to point the boat home. The problem is it's 1965. We don't have any kind of electronic navigation gear. And so where the heck is home? Yeah, it's somewhere over the horizon. So you don't really know where at home. You make a guess. You pick a point on the compass. You ease the throttles to cruising speed because there's no more time for trolling anymore. You got to get home. Spend an hour catching fish. The guests will talk excitedly about their adventure all the way back to the dock. 10 minutes later, exactly, you come across a little tiny boat, again off the starboard bow. What's it doing way out here, this little tiny boat out of sight of land? No tiny boat should ever be this far out. Certainly not at this location. There's no reason to be here. The blue marlin would not have been here if it had not been for a drifting plank with fish biting for an hour and then stopping. There's another thing that's strange about this boat, not just where it is. It's not moving and it's listing to port. What in the world? It's your father who understands first what's happening. This little boat, 12 miles out from land in shark-infested waters, is sinking. Quickly, you swing the boat to the bow to starboard, and you've got to reach the boat before it goes under, pulling the people down with it beneath the waves. Anxiety fills your chest, squeezing out all room for breath of air. More than the danger, you're struck by just How absurd for them to get themselves into such a predicament. Venturing this far out in such a tiny boat out of sight of land, no radio, inadequate life-saving equipment, shark-infested waters. Our much larger, fully equipped cruiser would not have been at this location at all if it had not been for that drifting plank. How incredibly dumb. You can't resist the thought. Such stupidity deserves what it gets. And then, after the rescue, you're struck again. More than the danger, more than the absurdity, it strikes you how improbable this all is. As our boat presses toward home, you gaze down to the deck below. 6 excited guests sharing sandwiches and beer with 6 excited newcomers, snatched suddenly from impending death. If there hadn't been the plank, or if you hadn't been trolling westward when you did, you wouldn't have seen the plank. Or if it had been to port rather than starboard, you wouldn't have seen it. Or if there hadn't been a school of Dorado swarming below it. Or if they hadn't struck the bait for exactly 1 hour. If they hadn't quit striking when they did, or if you guessed the slightly different compass setting, if you'd come across that boat 10 minutes earlier, nobody would have known it was sinking. If you'd come across it 5 minutes later, there would have been no boat at all. The incredible, overwhelming odds against this rescue are staggering. Nobody could ever have arranged all these circumstances. It's too complex. It's too absurd. It's too impossible. Or is it? You had to ask God for something very hard. Didn't have to be spectacular. You didn't ask God to write his name in the sky or do a miracle or anything like that. All you wanted was a little mechanical vending machine God. Insert $1, out drops a little packet of metaphysics. You had wondered whether God might be intentional and conscious. But you never dreamed that God might refuse to show up for David Letterman's segment of stupid God tricks. You never dreamed that God would be bigger than all that. You never dreamed that God might be gracious. You never guessed that a conscious, intentional, gracious God might send undeserving, drowning people a drifting plank, 42 fish, and an awestruck 12-year-old boy. Thank you, God. Thank you, Dad.